On Tidemark Talks today, we have Darren Rude. Darren, along with his wife Patty, are the founders of the Youtheory brand of nutritional products. This was a startup company in 2010 and grew to international prominence, selling through Costco, Walmart, and over 60,000 retailers. Darren drew on his experience with many family businesses in which he was involved, and through faith and family, had a great culture of company and took this thing to the ultimate heights. Let's take a listen. Welcome to Tidemark Talks. We are here with Darren Rude today, but let me make a couple introductions first, and we'll keep talking. We were talking offline, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, we already started.
Yeah, this is my son Taylor. He's with Tidemark, of course, running with our partner Pat Lacey, our brokerage division. My son-in-law Basil Newburn, who's running our property management division. So you guys are here, and thanks for joining as well. And we're lucky to have Darren Rude, former owner, but also founder and CEO of Youtheory brand, which is nutritional supplements that went wildfire and then ultimately sold. So thank you for joining us. The whole intent of this talk, as we kind of get rolling, is to really bring some learning and some interest and really some inspiration to other business owners and entrepreneurs in Orange County, because we've been blessed to deal with people like you, Darren, and thank you for working with us over the years. We've loved it and are thrilled for you and the company. But let's kick it off a little bit. We started to talk a little bit about now times with the nutritional industry, but let's go back. Let's talk about the history with your family, with your great-grandfather and grandfather a little bit, because it really gave you some pedigree to grow up in your industry. And if you might just share with our listeners a little bit about that would be terrific.
Yeah, most people think, you just jumped into it, or you found, a niche and you jumped into it. But, if you go back, and I have a lot of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds ask me to lunch and ask, I want to build a business. How did you do it? And I tell them it started, like when I was 5. And my grandfather wanted to nurture me into running his company. And so in doing that, he built a box, and I would stand on this box and flip jars onto the assembly line in our pickle factory. So our family came from Sicily and moved over into Boston and created delis and barber shops, and then went on to follow a brother who joined the Navy and became a war hero, and moved to San Diego and told them how great the weather is in California. So everybody got in their DeSotos. That's all they had. And they went down Route 66. And a lot of times I talk to my employees about it, because a lot of times they feel like, they're from a different country and they're not getting treated well. And I'm like, welcome to America. Yeah. And I tell them the Italian story, because everybody was WAPs back then. And you weren't allowed to stay in hotels because you were dirty. Crazy. So my mother, on her way over from Boston, slept in the car with her cousins and brothers and worked their way to California and opened a grocery store in San Diego. And then they moved from San Diego to L.A. and to Gardena, California, and opened quite a few delis and franchised them out, and then bakery.
And were those openings and those company starts out of necessity? Because, call it discrimination combined with the need to grow the family?
Well, I went back to Sicily and Bacchino, and we're still growing tomatoes there and peppers in the family farm that was my great-grandparents' farm. My cousin still does it, and he's a doctor there, but he's still farming. And so with that, they were very hungry for business, and they were workaholics 7 days a week, and they loved it. It wasn't like they didn't like it. They loved it. They love food. And so, we became, the inventors of the torpedo. And in this very building, when I walked up, I haven't been here since my late cousin opened a sandwich shop, which later was Quiznos. And it was done in this building when the building was built.
Really?
So, yeah. And it was a test store here for actually Giuliano's, not Quiznos, but my cousin went on to help them. And so, we always have had a passion for business. And going back to where my grandfather ended up in between all that, helping a friend who had a very small business making soup out of New York, which was Progresso. And so my grandfather told him he needed to move to LA and build it. And so my grandfather helped market and build it and was a partner for a while, left that business to do Giuliano's, and then helped him and his brother built the delis. He moved on to do pickling, where with Vlasic and Rycroft and Cisco, and still today, if you go into any of the sandwich shops, those are all my family's pepperoncini or banana wax peppers, and some of the relish or peppers that you see out there in the store shelf with different labels are ours. So, to this day, we're doing 100,000 croissants a day. We have the big Hughes plant in Gardena that's bakery, integrated foods. So all my cousins, we got to our generation, and all my cousins wanted to be the CEO. So we had to have a couple of dozen companies in order to all be CEO. Yeah. So far we've been all successful and having a good time.
Yeah.
And I'm the very first family member to sell this business.
Wow.
Nobody's
really?
ever sold their business. Yeah. So, my uncles, which are now in their late 80s, were like, "You're doing what?"
So when we're sitting at Angel Stadium, we saw Youtheory on the advertising on the big screen, and I go get my hot dog. The relish is probably yours.
Yeah, all over the place.
Yeah.
And the bread.
Can I get some pepperoncinis too?
Right. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, from there, when I was like 5 years old and bottling, that's what we do, at Youtheory. We're doing the same bottling. It's the same bottling line. We're just not using glass anymore. Now we're going to aluminum.
Oh,
And so, it was the way of our family. And so all the way through there, I went to, that's how I got in the grocery business. People are like, well, how'd you get in Costco so big? Well, I was with Jim Sinegal when I was a kid, jumping on pallets at FedMart.
Yeah.
So, and then I went to the sales calls. And I was young. I just went and sat next to my grandfather. And then he would make me, when I turned 16, fill the truck and go deliver it. Because back then at Price Club, you would drive the truck to the back of every warehouse and unload your pallet. They didn't have distribution.
Yeah, right.
So, you learn young, but, it wasn't an overnight process.
Yeah.
And I had quite a few cousins that would rather surf or play a sport than go for the summer and work the plant.
Right.
And so I did both, but I was focused more on business the whole time. It was my passion, and my grandfather could see it. I was willing to be taught. And, he'd drive around in an old Volkswagen Bug, 1955 Oval window ragtop, that we still have in the family today. He made me get a newspaper route, which I didn't need to. He made me work in a Christmas tree lot and manage it. Just to get business knowledge. And I used to throw papers out of the V-Dub, but he used to go to the sales calls. So he'd have a 4-door Lincoln Continental in pristine shape in the garage. He would never take it to a customer. Wow. He would always be driving the Bug.
Wow.
And in the sun visor, he used to have cards because there's no computers or phones back then. But he was one of the first guys, by the way, to have a cell phone. Huge box in the middle of his car.
That. You had one of those.
Yeah. And anyway, so he would flip down the card and take the card of the day and the customer, and then he would know all the customers' kids' birthdays. And in the back were gifts.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
For age and gender.
Wow.
And then he would have a joke. And then he would go in with that joke and know the whole, and learn memorize the family names in the car, go in there, and that's how he'd present every time he went on a sales call. And he didn't have to do sales calls anymore. He did sales calls until he couldn't find Costco. Like he didn't get his car keys taken away, but the Lincoln that he was driving was completely smashed up. But he had no idea where he got the dents. And then he got lost to the Costco and called on his cell phone to find him.
Oh,
Because he couldn't find, because he ended up with Alzheimer's.
Oh,
But, he went all the way until
he
was
loved it.
in his 80s. Oh, yeah.
So he loved it.
Yeah. All the old grocery guys do. You look at Jim Sinegal today.
Yeah.
I just ran into him in a warehouse. And and I go, "What's wrong? What are you finding wrong today?" "Oh, leave me alone."
Well, then everybody in your family was an entrepreneur then, because like when I met you, you were helping your mom
Yeah.
with her business, and it wasn't grocery.
No.
It was silk flour.
Yeah, it was kind of my grandfather and I's hobby to see what we could do with this gift business.
Yeah.
And she started putting flowers on bows and gift baskets and stuff, and we were just like, great, And then she had,
But it was early to that game. It was,
it was very early.
It was really cool.
yeah, it was very
really
cool.
cool.
Yeah. So she had 1,000 Christmas ornaments. She decorated Rogers Gardens back then, all their Christmas trees. And so,
Well, what was interesting is when I met you, you were sweeping the floor. Then you'd go out and look at a building with me.
yeah. Well, you got to tell that story, because I tell that story all the time, and it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather, which Jim didn't know, and didn't know any background. I don't know how I found you, but I got your number. I was 15.
Well, I cold called the building.
Yeah.
And busy. I mean, it was like everything was happening.
Yeah.
So I figured I got to get in and get to know. And your mom was lovely, and so but she was really leaning on you to. I mean, there was a lot of stuff. The funniest part about all this, and then we could talk about that because it was a great story.
Yeah.
But after Youtheory Youtheory got going, you'd still be doing the forklift. You'd still be doing I don't think you ever sat down at your office, did you?
I didn't like that part.
Yeah.
So even up until the day I sold, I love driving forklifts, and I get in fact, my grandchild at 4 just stole my golf cart at a NASCAR event and took his 3-year-old cousins for a ride at 24 miles an hour through the pits.
Wow.
It's on video on NASCAR.
So are your kids involved with the business too?
No, that's what happened. So my kids decided they wanted to be firemen. So I have 2 at Newport Beach and 1 in Burbank.
Wow.
And then the other one's a barber. So I was like, nobody wants to.
The barber, that means it goes full circle back to
brings
your.
it all back.
Yeah. And so anyways, it ended up that next generation didn't want to do it. Yeah. So I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So
you have your kids are involved with the racing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So my kids have been champions of off-road racing, and we've had a couple of terrible accidents in our racing career as a family, and so we hung it up for a couple of years. Happened in 2020.
Oh, really?
Where I had my son-in-law break his back and neck and artery, so we hung it up for a little while because now they have
scary.
kids and they're firemen, so they can't be, the Red Bull, champion. Being firemen, which is okay with me because I want him to have a career and not a race career. But we just finished the Baja 500 Nora, and I told them, if you want to race, you can race Pro R Polarises because they're a 100-mile-an-hour car instead of 170. And
tone it down.
And so we were actually in first place. Up against Robbie Gordon and a few other pros.
Congratulations.
And it's kind of a fun race. It's not the score race, but Nora is becoming the big Polaris race. So they ended up getting 3rd and a 7th out of 130. And I'm like, oh, great. So yesterday, we just purchased 2 new race cars.
Off-road?
Yeah, they're Can-Ams. But for the Baja 1000, Nora, so I guess we're
Back in
back
it.
in it a little bit.
Can't stay away from long.
No. And my wife's more of a racer than me. I mean,
Oh, really?
yeah. So, go think it, right?
Yeah.
But she's the one that actually bought the race cars, not me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know the story of when you met Patty.
Yeah. So we were both single at 30 and 34-ish, and we were at a baseball game. And the baseball game was our sons, and our sons were on the same team. So I was friends with her dad. He actually kicked me off of the beach at Camp Pendleton because he ran the campground there. And if you're a surfer, you know all about it, and you know about the old dog and the quad back in the day. And so when we ended up being on the same baseball team, he used to bring my stepson, Jeff, to the games, and we would hang out together. And so ended up that my now daughter, Danielle, was in the stands and told her mom that I would be perfect for her. And she wouldn't talk to guys at the baseball games. You couldn't even get close to her. And so a friend of ours put us together. And she stiffed me on 2 dates. And the dates had to be with kids and at a pizza place. And
More casual,
yeah. So I said the third one's the charm. You don't show up, I don't call anymore. And she showed up.
Your persistent sales training.
Yeah.
Made you work for it, though.
Yeah. And
He had already remembered the birthdays he's got.
Yeah. You had a gift in the car that you pulled out for him.
Yeah, it was funny.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
anyway, the other funny one was that at the time my friends were teasing me because I had a Range Rover, and they would tease me I only get to date girls because I have my car. So I sold it and bought an Astro van with baseball equipment all inside, and that's when I married Patty in an Astro van. So I always tell the story. I used to take her out in an Astro van. Her car was better than mine, and I go, I got the Astro van because I'm supposed to be a baseball coach,
Well, it turned out, it was a great partnership, of course. So
Yeah.
what I think, is interesting to me is, so there you go through this. We meet when you're 15, you're sweeping floors. I didn't really talk to you for a while. It went, the business went elsewhere. In other words, and then all of a sudden I get a call from you one day, and I've got this business.
Yeah.
And so I think the first building, maybe when you formed the company, was up on Susan. Maybe. I think that was the first one.
Yeah.
Because you're getting a clean room set up and all that.
No. Well, we had a different brand, NeoCell.
Oh, NeoCell.
And we
NeoCell, yeah.
rented a building in Santa Ana.
Yeah.
And then rented the building next door to that, and we're
The two.
growing.
Yes. Yeah.
And then moved into Susan as the Youtheory brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I, when going back kind of just to follow the lineage here, so when your idea to get this nutritional supplement brand going, you have the background, you've got the sort of the initiative, the drive to do it, but that idea had to, you had to know you had something, or did you? And I know you met some really cool people, the doctor and some others, but how did it what were the elements that brought it together that sparked the idea?
The big one was Tom Tierney, who we've done an interview together because he's all, I really told you that? And I'm like, you told me. And he said that, Darren, we have to create a product that it hurts to go off of, like aspirin, but naturally. If we could do that, we got a home run. And that stuck in my head. And the other one was Mother's Market. I was at the time selling pickles and peppers, and the condiment aisle was shrinking, and nutrition was taking its place. And the person in Mother's, which her name is Sharon Rude, which was kind of interesting, not related. And she took the pickle jar and she took a vitamin jar, put them up together, and said, "It's the same size on my shelf. Your pickles are $3.75. This vitamin's $22.50. I'm making $7 off this bottle. It's the same size on my shelf. What am I going to sell?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to sell it.
What am I gonna
I'm
say?
going to manufacture it."
Yeah.
Now, what is it?
You
She
saw
goes,
the
"Darren,"
trend.
and she literally said, "Darren, it's just food." And I'm like, I know how to bottle. I just don't know how to formulate. And so at the time, the guy that was with Tom Tierney had left to form his own manufacturing company, a guy named Michael Nassar, and great formulator. And so I called him up and said, let's start formulating product. And so we did it. I had a couple of partners, and I learned early on, you don't have partners. I don't, for me, it doesn't work for me. And I didn't want a partner. So I went into Youtheory with no partners, and that worked really well for me. Creating Youtheory was like at a pinnacle point where on the marketing side, we knew we had to have a name that didn't exist. Like you didn't want to come out with a name like, Harvest Nutrition, because Harvest is all over the place.
Right.
You wanted to come out with a name that nobody else had, but everybody else would form a passion around, and that it would sink into their heads. And we got like 6 people that weren't really marketing people, just grocery people. And we just sat in a room and came up with a name.
Yeah.
So
Cool name.
Yeah,
too.
it's like kind of forward-leaning, brand, right? Like theory, you kind of get that sort of like technological, and you're on the cutting edge of that. That the nutrition business as it was growing.
Yeah. Well, it's something about it because we named a boat Our Theory. And I was in Mexico in Laredo, and somebody pulls up next to me and goes, "Are you the Youtheory people?" And I said, "Why?" She goes, "Because of Youtheory." I said, "It's not Youtheory, it's Our Theory." And she's all, "Oh, it is." And I said, "No, we are the Youtheory founders." So it was kind of interesting. So the bad part is everybody knows who you are as you drive by in your boat.
Yeah.
So when was that it launched? When was Youtheory created?
2010.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wasn't a long period.
Yeah.
I had another brand with partners called NeoCell for 11 years, and then the partners split up, and then I created Youtheory. And so, when you take that brand and our brand, it's, a good, 22 years basically that really manufacturing and developing product. Yeah. So when we launched turmeric, that was the aspirin because it was the natural aspirin. And we had we had dinner with Bear one time, and they told us, you basically stole their aspirin business, and you're the natural Bear. And I sat there and went, full circle. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Well, and when you were doing that growth was quick. I mean, you're talking about 11 years. And I'm just segueing back to real estate because that's sort of what we do. You really focused on leasing property, not buying. Was that because of the growth, because of the capital reinvestment? What was sort of...
It was a capital reinvestment. I mean, I wanted to invest everything. It wasn't all hunky-dory all the way through because at the very beginning when we started Youtheory, I had my partner sue me to stop me from creating another brand. And that took like 6 months. And I was fully...
I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I was fully manufacturing.
Yeah.
I had a full clean room built, and I had employees, and we weren't shipping anything for 6 months. So I had to raise capital.
Yeah.
So I raised capital from all good friends, and they're happy today. And so with that, then we ended up. What was your question?
Well, you were leasing property.
Yeah, I was leasing
buying,
up. Yeah, I wanted to buy property, but
Yeah.
what it was like. It was the venture capitalists owned most of the 100 to 200,000 square foot buildings in Orange County that I needed.
Yeah.
So at that point, there was nothing for sale.
Yeah.
And I needed to move.
Well,
Similar
the
today.
one move that Darren made I thought was interesting when they leased their building in Irvine called 100,000 feet. It was a good lease. It was a good lease rate, a good opportunity. But the landlord was giving this meager tenant improvement allowance. And he said, no, I'll take it as is. Give me the allowance. And then you created a great Youtheory culture, in my opinion, the way you set it up, the building. But during that period, and we're getting a little ahead, but I'm going to get ahead. He says, well, in the building, we're going to have a race team spot. And I was like, A race team for what?
Yeah, because we had to get it approved. I went to the landlord and I'm like, look, I know we're manufacturing nutrition.
Yeah.
But I have to build another building within that isn't part of the building
Right.
for a race team.
And they're like, and you're trying to explain that to the landlord, like, okay, it's health products.
Like, are you building engines? And that was the great answer because we're like, no, they're built at another facility. We just put them on the car here, and there'll be no engine building in this building or transmit. And they went, all right, we'll do it. And it was funny because when I walked my retailers through it, it was kind of like, like nutrition retailers, but I mean their names were on the cars.
But part of that growth, and you might comment on the race team, is you started to do your marketing went into this athletic arena.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's so you why? I mean, it's different than Pickles and
yeah, we never did that on the food side.
Right.
So I wanted, I started seeing brands really guerrilla market at events. Whether it's on the beach, at a country concert, or at an Angel game. Mm-hmm. We started noticing that people were buying brands because of their passion. Mm. They would see a brand, take for instance, Kind Bars. You ever seen an advertisement for Kind Bars? No. But you go to a beach event, they're giving you a Kind Bar. Mm. So you're watching a surf contest, and you look at the Kind Bar sitting at, a local retailer, even Starbucks, and you start thinking about that great experience you had at the surf contest. So people will start talking about your brand. Is this the brand on the NASCAR?
Yeah, right.
And what happened with the NASCAR situation was there wasn't anybody selling to men. If most women buy the supplements for their husband.
Right.
But I was at a sushi restaurant, and the sushi guy, somebody said, "Hey, aren't you the Youtheory people?" We said, "Yeah, you got any samples?" And sure enough, Patty had samples in her purse, pulls them out and hands them out. He goes, "My wife makes me take that." And the other sushi guy goes, "Oh my gosh, you're going to grow hair." Like long hair, and starts teasing him about taking a woman's supplement. And I said, "That's it. I got to create a men's collagen line."
Right.
And then I'm like, "Where am I going to launch it?" And I go, "I'm going to launch it in the garage at NASCAR." Yeah. Where else?
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was I got in there, and you got like 100,000 people that walk by your trailer at NASCAR, but you've got all the guys that are in their 50s because of by the time they get to Cup, and they're the pit crew, they're in their 50s, late 40s to 50s.
Oh, interesting.
They're hurting.
Yeah.
It's hard to get over the wall.
Yeah.
So they started taking my supplements, and then I had a few drivers, like Kyle Busch, started taking ashwagandha, and noticed a difference as he was driving, calming down his mental health, and started talking about it. And so I got more of the teams on it than I noticed the actual fans walking through. So that was a real hit for us. We did it for 7 years, and we're still involved in NASCAR. And believe it really helps, especially on the men's side. But I don't know if you know this, but 60% of the fans are women in NASCAR.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so we always had a setup.
Well, so you have both covered.
Yeah,
you got them both.
You got them both covered. But the Angels and the
that was cool.
That was great,
that was cool.
And then Otani for Japan really helped us. And then when you talk about country concerts and you're sitting there and we'd set up a trailer, we'd have 80 brand ambassadors walking around in little bicycles handing out product. Because you go to the big ones, Country Thunder, Stagecoach. I mean, you got hundreds of thousands of people standing there, and that's their passion, country music, and you're passing out your product and talking about your product. It works.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm a true believer in guerrilla marketing and events.
Yeah. It worked. I mean, but at some point you had not only that, but you 60,000 retail, not to mention Walmart, not to mention Costco. So how do you get in that short period of time? What was the unique factor? I mean, was it all of the above, or how would you describe your unique factor to get to that level?
Well, 12 years ago, you were able to throw cases in the car like my grandfather did, And, like for Sprouts or even a lot of Costco's, you'd go in, like Costco's, I'd demo them. And I'd have demo people, but I literally demoed quite often. And I did a couple of years ago myself. I went into Costco and act like the demo person. I mean, I was doing the demo.
Yeah, sure.
But I wanted, because, there's one thing about getting to your core customer, face to face and asking them questions on what they're taking, what they want. You don't get that by, telemarketing or what have you. So, we love demos, but at the same time, I personally was walking into stores with my relationships with the Boney family at Sprouts. And I walked in and, to Scott Boney in Scottsdale, Arizona, it was easy. I walked right into his office back then. He only had like 5 stores when I started, and he put it in. And then I would go around to I'd go around to every Sprouts and train the nutritionist in the department. And, still to this day, Sprouts has a way of helping people get on supplements because of the people, their staff and their supplement side.
Because their knowledge.
Education element.
Yeah, you can walk in and say, I got this element. I don't feel good because, and they'll help you. And you can go to the pharmacy department and go to the pharmacist at Costco, and he'll help you now. But back then, they didn't know anything. Now they do.
But that's one of your strengths is you have the ability to be seamless in whether it's with the pit crew or you're in Sprouts doing the demo or you're in the warehouse. I mean, was that a learned quality, or just because you've been at it so long, you can move kind of in between those circles very easily? Not everybody can do that.
Right. Well, it's like I grew up in manufacturing. So I knew how to run a tablet machine, a capsulating machine. I knew how to do the blender, all the way to running the line and fixing machines, right? So I gained a lot of trust with my team because I would literally, I'd get done with an Angel game. I'd go there because we run 24 hours a day. I'd go there after the Angel game and get there at about 11 o'clock, throw on a gown, and go in there and tell the guy, hey, let me run the machine with you. And sometimes, in the last few years I was there, they wouldn't even know who I was because they had only been there for a little while. And I tried to pick those guys.
Yeah.
He's a new guy on the machine.
Undercover boss.
Yeah, undercover boss. But I'd go in there, but he would learn that I knew more than he did.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, well, wait a minute. This guy doesn't just, sit out there and, talk the talk. He walks the walk. And so, when a machine, early on when we started encapsulating product, that we were one of the first to do that, and people didn't know how to do that. And so we learned early on, but we had issues all the time because the capsulating machines were brand new.
Yeah.
And we were able to fix the issues, but I was one-on-one with them. We were in there together.
Yeah.
And for hours and hours and days trying to repair machines. CEOs usually don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, kind of important, though, because every aspect, when you were, whether it was the clean room or the machines, you were involved. And I think, it was, that's why I say you're on your feet a lot, but that seamlessness or your ability to move between groups was really valuable. I mean, one of your great strengths, I think, as a leader, because as you describe leadership, how would you, to supplement what I'm saying is how do you kind of view your own leadership style with your group?
One-on-one.
Because
you grew so fast. I mean, it's extraordinary.
I read you talked about the servant leader mindset. And it's something that you've taught us too. But I think that really resonated with us because it's kind of the same philosophy that we have. But yeah, maybe you could just expand on that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Your team doesn't really believe that you first care about them and that you're willing to serve them. And so, 1 year we were trying to ship an order out and we were up against the wall on Christmas because our biggest, in the nutrition industry, your biggest month is January, February months. And so we had a Christmas, are we going to work Christmas? What are we going to do? So my production team's all, look, we're going to have Christmas until 10 o'clock come in and work through the night. and keep going until through New Year's. And I'm like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
We can't do that. I never want anybody to work Christmas. And my full production team every year would take off from Christmas to New Year's, and a lot of them would go back to see their family. And so they looked forward to that, but they're willing to give it all up. So one year I said, if you're giving it up, I'm giving it up. And my wife, Patty, goes, I'm giving it up. And then all my kids said we're giving it up. And then I had friends that said, we'll help, and my brothers and sisters. So we all walked in at like 9 a.m. on a Christmas morning and worked the week with the production team and got the order out. And when we did that, it was like, you know, a light bulb went off.
Yeah.
But they see, you know, being a servant leader is, you know, when their family's ill or something's going on, you know about it and you're helping them with it. Or, for instance, I remember days where the trucks can get loaded because there wasn't enough forklift drivers. And, you know, it's always December when that happens. And they're struggling to get all the orders out. And so I grabbed a forklift from the race team and went around and started loading trucks. And they're like, you don't have to do that. No, you don't. No, I want to. I'm enjoying this. I haven't done it in a while.
Yeah.
But we got the trucks loaded. And so they realized that, you know, I'll go, like my favorite is always the shipping department. I don't know why. But I love taping up boxes and filling orders. And I like reading the orders and see what they do. And I'll go in there and start doing it. And they're, you know, the talk, you can see the talk in the warehouse. Oh, great, Darren's in the shipping department, you know. But yeah, it's
That's
like,
so cool.
you know, there's issues where, you know, I've always wanted to look and feel like my warehouses are as clean as Costco. 'Cause you know how clean. And Sol Price was, you know, the leader of clean, and then Jim Sinegal. And so around my shelves, I always would look to see if there's any dust. And when I found it, I would go clean it. I wouldn't go tell the janitor.
Right.
And they would walk by and all of a sudden see me cleaning. And they would go, wait, I need to be doing that. And I'm like, you're right, but it's not done. So I'll do it. But let's keep these clean. And, you know, most CEOs just
Great
start screaming.
That's true leadership, yeah.
Great example.
Yeah.
Well, in concert with that too, as you grew in your international production, international grows over in India, you have relationships with those growers. Explain some of the great things you did for some of those communities over there on the school side of things. I mean, you know, you and I talked about, and that was phenomenal because you're impacting generations over there of people and families.
Sure. And, you know, still going on, of course, today.
Yeah.
So, you know, we noticed that the villages, a couple of the farmers kept telling us the villages don't have water because, you know, you run into droughts there quite often. And so we had trucks coming in from northern India with water with our name on it on the side. And I'm like, and they're going right through the village. And I'm like, that's not good, you know. And our farmer felt the same way. And so we decided, you know, for every 2 trucks, let's give a truck to the village.
Wow.
And it really seemed to help the communities. And then they felt like they wanted to help us. So we were able, when we moved into turmeric and then moved into ashwagandha, we were pulling it all out of India or growing it all out of India. And so we had over 10, today I think it's more like 20,000 farmers, but at that time it was like 10. Because each of them only have like 20 acres. So so from there, we were looking and noticing that they didn't have enough water or know how to irrigate their fields properly. So we would buy them the irrigation, and then they would lease it from us, basically, so we could keep them in our fold because we took out the distributors. And at that time, the distributors weren't that happy. So, you know, we had to segue into that because we knew if we could irrigate their fields and put their kids in school, it would be a win-win for them.
Sure.
And they would be loyal to us and we'd be loyal to them. And so we did that. And once we did the school situation, Patty and I were driving, you know, which is crazy in India. But we were driving and all of a sudden Patty's, you know, we'd flew all night, and Patty's sleeping in this crazy car going under semi trucks. And all of a sudden I drive by and there's a billboard of us, like a full-on picture of Patty and I. And I'm all, I didn't see that. And then there's another one. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they got billboards of us. I'm
That's
like, wake
cool.
up, Patty, wake up. And she didn't believe me. And then, they had filled like the whole southern region of India with billboards, thanking us and welcoming us to the farms. And so, seeing the kids in school with backpacks, pens, and pencils and teachers, was amazing.
Amazing.
And it is amazing
Yeah.
today. And, and the people that purchase us, Jameson Wellness, they've been back and forth themselves and just, can't believe what we're doing there.
One of the
So
things
cool.
that I hear you saying is, being present, being out, in the warehouse, being out in the fields, and then also just a curiosity and just noticing. Like you keep saying, oh, we noticed this, we noticed that at a sushi restaurant, at NASCAR, at in the fields, and that seems like another theme and kind of, the entrepreneurial instinct maybe of just being aware and noticing and figuring out a way to improve something or capture the essence of an opportunity. Is that intentional or just kind of natural?
It's natural, but also intentional. I mean, I did a situation where we live part-time in Parker, Arizona, which is an Indian town, a small town. You're going to sell 5 bottles probably. You know what I mean? It's very small. Most of the homes on the water are California people that use them for vacation homes, but the people that live there are very passionate, and they love Youtheory. You'll see at any given day somebody walking with a hat or a shirt that says Youtheory, and they love our race team too. That's because that's a big racing community. So we would go they do a dam to dam race, and then we would go with a big trailer, and we would hang it all out. I mean, we would set up a huge display at the events in Parker. And it was a good test because, we had 80% of the community still today that will talk about Youtheory and the brand. And I was like, I did that there, and then said, this has got to move across the country. We got to do more of this. And people would ask me, why are you doing Parker? All this stuff. And I'm like, first of all, I love the community, and second of all, I want to see it work here.
Yeah.
So, and I still today, it's like, hey, I had a guy from New Zealand say, I got on your product because I did the dam to dam race in a kayak, and you gave me a sample pack, and I couldn't get off the product when I went home.
Wow.
Yeah. So it works. You never know who you're going to talk to, right?
Yeah.
In those small community events.
Yeah.
So
You still spend a lot of time in Parker, right?
yeah.
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 So most of our time's in Wyoming.
Yeah.
So we're, we
We got to tell that story.
yeah. So we ended up, buying acreage. It's a ranch up in Alta, Wyoming, and we now have cattle. And we were growing. The previous owners were growing barley for Coors, so we continued that. And now the barley is, sadly to say, is now growing in Brazil for a lot lower the cost with a lot more chemicals. And so this last year I tried to sell high quality barley, and it's getting tougher and tougher. So now we'll be the first, as far as I know, to grow Wyoming potatoes. I am on the border of Idaho. Idaho potatoes.
Yeah.
And we are going to grow organic potatoes and call it Hummingbird Ranch Gardens. And my kids are going to start a brand, Hummingbird brand.
I like that.
They're already
That's a good
working
name.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's all going to be organic and
Very cool.
pesticide free, and so that's our new gig.
Yeah.
So we're excited about it, but
Literally can't help yourself.
I remember you were telling me the story when you bought the ranch, and just to tie it back into real estate too, because it was a genius real estate move too, because you had the water rights and that sort of
That's right.
interior, Western United States is kind of the final frontier. So You know, I mean, it's like, in addition to just being cool, it was also like a really smart investment.
Yeah, it's pretty hard for a California person to buy that property up there because it's homesteaded and families have been in it since the 1800s. And so Patty and I had moved to Parker, Arizona for 6 years, residents of Parker, Arizona, and then went from Parker, Arizona to there. So we were called snowbirds. And if we were California residents up there, we probably wouldn't have our property.
Really?
Yeah. So, you know, even going and getting your driver's license there, when I turned in my Arizona driver's license, you know, I was better perceived than if you turn in a California license. So
They're like Arizona. Oh,
all
right.
that, you know, if anybody watches Yellowstone,
Yeah.
90% true. So my water rights, you know, I've got 1,800 water rights. I'm the first guy to receive water out of the Tetons on that side out of a river. We won't name it. But anyways, and I'm going to water board meetings constantly, mostly for the farmers in Idaho, because they're getting attacked. And so you know, what you see on the news is true. You know, our country's against us for being farmers.
Environmental regulations and things.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's just, you know, I don't know if you know this, but even my cattle, you know, they're basically watching my cattle as, you know, as a federal government. They want to put chips in my cattle, and so they can monitor where the cattle goes, when and where. And you know, the farmers up there are fighting all that, and it's tough, but it's going down that road, and they don't even want cattle because, you know, they feel like it's bad for the environment. So you know, it's an uphill battle, but you know, I'm willing to fight it. I think you know, it's a challenge in my life at my age. To, you know, all my kids are I grew them up in the natural food business, and now they are, you know, not only firemen but their wives and themselves. I've never, you know, I joke around with it because, you know, they won't eat anything with preservatives or, you know, modified foods. And they grow all their own vegetables and fruit, and they are buying meat from the Amish, to tell you the truth, at this point, because they can't find it anywhere else. And I've noticed in the grocery business, you know, what the venture capitalist groups that are buying these grocery companies, what they're doing to the labels, even organic. Yeah. And you just don't want to put that in your body.
Doesn't mean anything.
No. So you know, they're creating an advocate in me. Yeah. And that's why we decided, hey, let's do it. Let's be, you know, we're going to buy more land up there, and we're going to grow more and have more cattle.
But I think it's another instance where you're sort of on the forefront of a trend too, you know, because I think more and more people are thinking about this stuff, you know, especially younger generations. It's like you want to know what's going on in your body, you know?
Yeah. I mean, never before have we seen, you know, natural food people bloggers walk into Costco and pick up packages and tell you not to eat it, and then pick up another one and goes, this is the one you want.
Right.
And, you know, Pepsi should wake up, because their chips, you know, nobody's going to eat their chips.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are chip companies out there now that are pure great for you, you know, and
taste good too.
And taste good. Yeah. So, yeah, the world's changing as we know it. So it's
that's exciting now.
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When a lot of your, you know, you were talking about, you know, the leadership style, you know, you walk and talk your faith. I mean, you had a great relationship with Rick Warren and different things. So maybe just touch on that. That's
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was on an interview, and somebody said to me at the very end of the interview, I'll even say it's Whole Foods Magazine, right? So one of the media giants in the natural food industry. And they're like, you know, if you go to lunch tomorrow with anybody, who would you go to lunch with? Well, that's simple. It'd be Jesus, right? Everybody in this world want to know and see, right? And they go, we can't use that. And I'm like, why not? And they're like, oh, you got to pick somebody else. And I'm like, no, I'm out of here. And I just got up, walked out.
Yeah, not your choice. Okay.
Yeah. So, but, you know, it's like, I was just telling the story the other day because somebody asked me, how did you get rid of your fear when you were building this business? It was growing so fast. A few times you were capped out on cash flow. Where did you feel like it was going to come from? Did you feel like you're going to go out of business? You're going to lose everything? Why did you take the leaps, in growing so fast? And, we rented that building and it was like, we were only a company that would take over a third.
Yeah.
And then we grew into it in a couple of years and said, we need more. Bought a building down the street.
Yeah.
And so I walked through the building one day with my partner, and my partner was a Muslim from Syria, and he's like freaking out, And I said, "You don't own this," and he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "God gave this to us as a tool. Let's treat it like that, and we're never going to fear losing it. If we lose it, then He didn't want us to have it.
Yeah.
But it's not ours. We don't own it." And I go, "You really don't own this building because it's a lease, number one."
Yeah.
Right? And I go, "So what do we have to lose?"
Yeah.
And I go, "I just don't fear every day. It's
That's
just,
a great philosophy.
Yeah, He's giving me a tool and I'm using it and building it and until He says no.
Yeah.
I'll keep doing it." And that really helped me, really take the fear right out of business. And so, with that and my business grew the biggest when I did more outreach programs, like going to Africa, and people would say, "You don't have time for this." And I go, no, I don't have time to do my business. I have time for this.
Right.
And then, I did every Tuesday night. I would help men in crisis at Saddleback Church, and then moved into more ministry at Saddleback to where they were like, "You're in the office more there than you are in your own office." And I'm all, "Yeah, my business is growing twice as fast. I probably should stay here." And so anyways, and it's just the way it was. It's just, and it helps because, when you're giving back, you don't look into your own problems. You're looking into others, and it really helps your life and your growth. So again, we were talking earlier about reading, and I read a lot of business books. Augmendino was a book that really helped me get to that next level and focus on the things I needed to focus on, and build my business. And so, another one I was always running out of time. It seemed like at one time in my life, and I read Stephen Covey's, great 7 Habits and all his books. And it really seemed to help me. And to this day, I use the 4 quadrants in my life.
Yeah.
And
we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it really will help you on time stealers, which happens quite often in your life. And so, it teaches you when one thing it teaches you when you're reading books too is that, you're just not giving the golden goose. Nobody really is. And hopefully you don't get that golden goose because, what I see in our generational businesses is, the kids, 3rd and 4th generation don't know what they're doing. And they ruin businesses because they never learned it. They didn't want to learn it. They just wanted to jump in and ride the wave. And so you really have to, be a student of, your dad's dad and learn from him and learn his qualities and his business ethics, and you'll prosper. So, for me, it was I would have never made it without my grandfather. Absolutely. He was an elder in a church, and I was lucky to be a part of that. And his growth in his companies were amazing, and had great success, but never acted like he didn't spend a lot of money. And he enjoyed life and traveled the world. But you would never really realize, how successful he was.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Well, and you said earlier a lot about, like Darren talked about relationships, and you had to develop those through your buyers, through your vendors, through your shipping people, through your employees, and that it's so vital. I think that's one of your great qualities is the ability to endear those relationships not only to you, But like some of the examples you're giving, you're really helping people in their own lives and standing alongside them at Christmas and you know and all that stuff. So I think that's a great quality. And you know, for a lot of the entrepreneurs, business owners, you've done a lot. I mean, almost a miraculous run with Youtheory. But what gets you up in the morning? I mean, like you can do whatever you want. What gets you up nowadays?
My dogs.
Hey, that's a good thing. Yeah.
I got these crazy Bernie doodles.
I got a gold to doodles.
You do?
He's up every morning.
I mean, if I only would have watched the blogs on owners of Bernie doodles, I probably would have went, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do wake me up. But you know, it's I'm just so blessed that we are able to sell our brand at the right time and be able to retire at a nice age. I saw a lot of, you know, I've got a motorhome club and a boating club, and they're all way older than me. And I dinner with them, and I always ask the question, what would you do different? Because most of these people are successful. You know, I just sat down with a guy that he built the Zoom. He created Zoom.
Wow.
And I won't mention names, but then the next guy next door to him created the Ethernet. And I'm like, what do you do now? And he's all, I got 10,000 acres in Texas. I love it. You know, I'm a farmer. And but I mean, you know, being able to travel, help people. I feel like I'm busier now than I was when I was with the brand. And, you know, I'm in California just to see my grandkids mostly. And then I'm out. I'm gone, you know. I'm back up in Wyoming. And then from Wyoming, you know, if it gets cold, I just go to Arizona. And I am a snowbird, snowbird, and which I used to make fun of all the time in Arizona.
Just embrace it.
And so anyway, so, you know, it's like tomorrow I leave, first thing in the morning, back up to the ranch. You know, I'm going to be birthing 20 cows.
Wow.
In May and June. And I actually have birthed horses. So, you know, in California, when I was growing up, my dad was a horticulture nut, and my uncle was the professor. And so I learned a lot about it growing up. Had horses right in Santa Ana, or really Fountain Valley, at the stables, and took care of horses there. Got got paid for cleaning up poop in the stable. Slaughtered a pig there. I mean, whoever would think you would slaughter a pig in Fountain Valley, right? And you know, in the stables. But I learned all that, and now it's all turning the corner, horses, cattle. And farming, and so I think that's where passion's starting to wean on, and we have another a brand that's coming out too. That's not nutrition. So, but in the grocery business, and that'll launch next year. So with all that, I'm not the head of them. I'm just helping.
Yeah, I remember when we were helping you buy your building in San Clemente. You sold the business. How's retirement going? Well, I got a pet food business. I got my farm. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the way to keep it going now.
Nothing new. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I got an accountant that's a great guy. His name's Ed. You know him.
Yeah.
And he loves to talk and play pool. And then what's weird is in San Clemente, there's all these guys that have retired that have man caves. And all the buildings next to me are man caves. They're not functional businesses.
Right.
And I'm like, where did this start,
Yeah.
But I guess that's, but I'm like telling Ed, I need your space. And he goes, for what? And I go, I don't know, another brand. And he's like, oh no. So yeah, it's fun. But
we'd have a lot more industrial space available in Orange County if there weren't so many car collections.
Right?
That's crazy.
Isn't that true? It's like, oh man. Yeah. Well, it's a byproduct of this show, this great Orange County we live in, a lot of great businesses.
Yeah.
And, we know you're heading out tomorrow, so we're thrilled you came by. We're thrilled that we know you. We're
thank
thrilled
you,
that we
Darren.
have a relationship with you. So
Appreciate
you
it.
blessed us in a very meaningful way in our family too. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good ride.
Yeah. And fun.
I always, before
And
you
fun.
end, tell the story. We got to tell the story that, Jim doesn't tell it very often, but I was 15 when I told him he had to come pick me up at my house.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a car
Wow.
to go find our first building.
Yeah.
Oh,
And he
okay.
took me and we leased it. And
Yeah.
then, my grandfather was all, maybe we need to lease more buildings.
Yeah.
And it's been a
Yeah.
great relationship. And I don't know how many buildings you and I have been through, but quite a few in
Yeah.
around here. And,
Rapidly too, which was amazing.
yeah, always.
Rapidly.
Yeah. It's like, find me a building like tomorrow.
And it was the weirdest thing. You guys are doing transactions. We do management. And Darren is the one guy, when you say that, you literally mean it. I cannot believe the speed at which we would consume buildings or which you would lease buildings.
Yeah.
Because of need. You knew it was there if you saw the opportunity was right.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd go look at a building on a Monday, and by Friday it was leased. And those are big buildings. Those are not like little ones. So I think that's part of the reason of your success was your ability to condense time, to be efficient, to understand. And really, I know you, I know your family. I think that relationship building has been so critical that to expand a company that big is really something. And hats off to you. I was glad to meet you at 15. You were still taller than me then. But hey, I'm picking up this kid. He's like,
He always had the nicer car than I did. He drove Volvos.
yeah, at the
And
beginning, that's
I
right.
had that Volvo, so I started buying Volvos.
Yeah.
For like 10 years, all I had was
But
Volvos.
you're an influencer.
Yeah, influence on cars.
And I was one of those. I bought the Volvo when these guys were just born because it was like the simplest car. I was like petrified of engines.
Yeah.
Like get me the simplest one that when it breaks down they can fix it quick and I'm back on the road. So
Yeah, my kids just saw a picture of my first house. And then there was a sedan Volvo and a station wagon Volvo, and they're like, "You were a Volvo guy?" Yeah. And I remember that.
We
'cause
did too.
I bought the Volvo because of Jim.
I had one follower.
One Volvo,
I think I have two now.
Right.
So a lot of fun though. But thanks, Darren. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you.
doing this.
Yeah,
That's
thank
fun.
you,
Yeah.
and thank you, Zill Media, for hosting us. It's awesome. Thank you, guys.